Hey everybody, DayTraderRockStar here, and this is going to be a market radar update. Just going to do some coverage of the overall market conditions, and also we'll take a look at a little Bitcoin, some cryptocurrency charts, just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at. First of all, last week, the last video I went out January 24th, and it was right before the correction here. We talked about this topping pattern, maybe pulling out. Well, we're going to go into the beginning of the month, and we had this end of the month selling, kind of a rebalancing taking place. We also had the State of the Union address, and all these things combining, we were looking at a possibility of a sell-off. Now, boy, did it sell off. We had a historic day where the Dow dropped over 1,500 points at one point. That was the greatest drop, I think, in history. It wasn't percentage-wise because the market has moved up so aggressively, but the points, 1,500 down, was made it an enjoyable day, at least during the market broadcast. So if you were watching the show at that time, you got to experience that. And we had a little bit more follow-through, and this is a picture of the daily chart right now. So a lot of volatility has come back into the market. Lots of, the ranges where we were waiting sometimes for an hour to get 2 or 3, 4 points on the S&P. Now we get 10 points in less than a few minutes. The S&P, the Dow Jones, actually, the industrials here, making 1,000 point swings during the day. So there is opportunities out there. Question is, there's a lot of fear out there, and where's the market going to go from this point on? So yeah, we did get some selling into that section, but you know what? The first time we get this nice little correction, it's not a full 10% correction. Maybe we got down about 8% off the highs. I could actually figure that out for you pretty easily. Just take a look at this from that point down to this point. We're just going to take a look. 8, close to 9%. And then we bounce back up. But those numbers, when we talk about retracement, or we talk about corrections and standard 10%, well, that's, just like anything else. These numbers change over years. I wouldn't put too much into it. What I would put into is this indicator right up, the stochastic rotation. This is the one we live and breathe by. And it's a fantastic one to pay attention to, especially on that daily. We knew eventually we were going to get oversold. And we did get oversold, and as you can see now that we're oversold both on the 9.3 and the 14.3. And for more information on that, you have to look into some of my videos on stochastic trading. But this is a perfect setup right now. This is our first really good oversold level in a long time. I mean, honestly, we did have an oversold level here back in August, September area, and a pretty nice divergence here too. This was a divergence. This was a low and a lower low and a low and a higher low. So this was a major move up. And from that point on, we kind of broke down, and now we're oversold. So you know what that means? The volatility is still there, but I do expect this to retrace back up. Now the question is, do we get a move back up towards the highs and take out the highs very fast, or do we just move back up a little bit further, fail, and then start to put in a bigger pattern? If I could tell you that, I wouldn't have to be doing these videos too much. But we trade this thing daily. All right, so these are all pieces of the puzzle coming out. We need a couple more pivot areas, and then we're able to actually identify these good tradable patterns. Right now, the daily is oversold. That's a great sign for a bounce. We had a big rally yesterday. Today we actually followed through and then sold out at the end of the day. And futures right now are okay. I'm going to take a look at that. But what's the big question? Well, there's still news out there. We have the budget talks going on right now, and I think if they pass this budget, we might actually see a continued rally tomorrow. The 20-period moving average, 27.62. We're not really going to hold true to this 1, 2, 3 channel yet because it doesn't have a secondary pivot up here, but I'm paying attention to the daily. The daily here is starting to rotate back up. The hourly was textbook. We had an hourly and a daily, which we call a dual time frame bounce here, and kind of a little divergence on the 60s. So this was a great level for a bounce. And just like whatever time frame you're using, remember, once you get overbought, you have to start being a little bit more cautious and looking for a possible pullback. And that's exactly what happened. We got a little extended here, and then the next thing you know, we started pulling back. Now we have two directions. Are we heading back up, or are we going to head back down to the lower trend line here? Maybe even take out the lows. All right, that's the big gamble right now. Now, like I said, I think if we get this budget fixed, there's some positive news coming out. I think this market has a good chance of rallying back up. Maybe not to break out of this channel, but we're going to head up. I think we have a good shot of actually moving up. I have been picking up some SPY calls. I would like to see the market rally aggressively tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday going into Friday. And from that point on, that would be fantastic. You know, and like I said, we have that 20-period moving average above us. This big candle will be a big mark in the sand. You know, we're talking 2750. That's a nice move here. We get 2750 out of that. That would be a very nice move back up, considering where we closed today and we actually sold off. So we have a lot of work to do going forward. But I think going forward right now, there's a couple of things that are in front of us, and I think this market does rebound back up. The question is, do we shoot right back and take out the highs, and this is a one and done, retracement, or do we push back up, then pull back down and start to form a bigger pullback, but eventually then move back up? No doubt, eventually we're moving higher. I don't think this is the highs of the year. No, we're not. This is not the highs of the year. I mean, we had such a good January. It was up about 6%. And as we know, historically, every January that closed above 5% here had a tremendous streak. I think it was like 20 for 20 of those Januaries that closed above 5%. We have a straight. I don't know how many times that happened. I think it was 20 to 30. You know, going back to 1950. But every single time we had I think it was close to an 18% gain on the year in some cases. This is a very good sign for us. Especially that January effect. The January effect, the pullback, actually the move up in January, and we're going to see that carry out through the year. So the first little pullback, not a big surprise. This is overdue. The volatility is definitely a surprise, but this is also going to lead us back up and to new highs. When does that happen? Does it happen just starting next week, or do we move back down? That needs to be seen. We're going to trade this as we see it. You can hear the water. I feel like I'm in a cave here. All right, just to recap here, we're not really looking for too much yet other than a bounce back up. But in case we come down, we have to really establish another pivot. Then I think it becomes much easier to reading these charts. Right now, this is the first breakdown, first major pivot, first bounce. Daily still looks good. Everything looks good. But it's an uncompleted chart. The big picture is playing out here slowly. And that's on the hourly, believe it or not. So, I mean, if we look at the big picture, it's even harder to recognize anything here. It's just the big move down, the big bounce, and the cross back up. So that 60-minute time frame is a little bit more interesting. I have two trend lines representing this double top and this pivot and just a general line. So just to talk about a level, 25.91, get down back, a little under that 2600 level we came down to. One more thing I want to pay attention to is how fast this rotation happens. That 60-minute time frame rotates back down. Consider this, I would consider this a little divergence here between this higher low and the lower low in the price. So this was pretty decent, steep, very tough, flash type of crash divergence. So really hard to pick it out on the 60-minute time frame. But the fact is, it is there. And when you do have that, there's usually an underlying trend line that comes into play. So this pullback sometimes actually puts in a higher low. So again, I think the bias is to the upside. How far do we go on this? It's either to the, again, that trend line, the 200, some other things. All right, so that's it on that. The stocks, let's talk about one stock. I've been buying this stock recently. It's Veru. VERU. I've talked about it on the show with the members of Day Trading Radio. So if you're a member of Day Trading Radio, you got the inside scoop on this. Wanted to throw it out there. Looking for some good news to come out of here. It's $1.35. It's a high risk speculative play. But with that said, I think there's things that are going to happen in this real soon. And just to be on the record for it, I like to be on the record and kind of, when we could look back at it and say, hey, this is what we told you to get in. So on the record here, VERU, building my position every day. It's going to start heading up. We're going to have a target probably above $4 on this. And You know, as it moves, I'll update you a little bit more on this thing. But for more information, DayTraderRadio.com. We'll discuss it on there. The Kellogg here. When we talk about these channels, we have a nice organized channel, downward move, stochastic pushback up, pivot areas being pushed in. This is what we're looking at developing now, if not 60-minute time frame, but there's only a piece of it there. So once we get down here, maybe a little flush and a divergence, or at least there was a divergence between this low and this low and this low and this higher low. And this whole area was our buy zone. And from that point, it moved up. It actually broke out of this huge trend line. It goes back to 2016. So a really big trend line. Broke out of it, came back, tested it, came back, popped up, and then came back again and tested it. So I love the retest of this trend line. Look how we closed right on that line. So, you know, next couple days I'd be paying attention to this sector. It's consumer defensive sector. Usually stocks that are, you know, dividend paying stocks, a little bit more consumer. You know, in this case, consumer products. This is a food product, but we like some of the other things like the Procter & Gamble down here also, which sold off and actually came down to a nice little support level. And this was a nice 1, 2, 3 channel. So our target on this one is to actually push back into that channel. So that's a couple that we're monitoring right now, the Veru. And for those out there following SeaWorld here, starting to break out of a channel. We're looking for some news to come out on this. So a couple out there, higher lows on the stochastics, usually a great sign for a continuing trend. And remember, there was insiders buying this one from basically $18 all the way down to $13. And now it's back up to $15. All right, so futures right now are actually not doing much. If they're down a little, they're down a little, maybe 6, 7 points. I can't even tell. I wanted to also take a look at the cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, I did some charting of it today. You know, I said, oh, let me do some charting of the Bitcoin. I mean, tremendous move all the way up to just about 20,000. I remember that was just last month, 2 months ago. I mean, that's how crazy this is. And now we're back down to under 10,000. I had a couple. What I've been doing is putting some orders in at big levels. And what's great about Bitcoin and some of the cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, you know, because it's probably the most established, recognized cryptocurrency to trade. You can't short it really. There's just a nice way about how this thing trades. It trades, you know, it pays attention to trend lines, channel lines, and everything else that goes along, especially whole numbers. So I've been buying it off of some of these technical levels. I bought it off of 6,000. All right, so we had this trend line here that went out from way out. It was the parallel trend line here. Look at this 1, 2, 3 pattern, and so we had that little. It was actually 6,500. I bought it at, and then we bought the Ethereum, and I just sold it. I sold it at 8,100 today. So that's good enough for me. But now I'm looking back at this, and I said, well, what would I like to get in on this? I would like to get back in on Bitcoin and put that order, and I did put the order in today. So I have 2 orders outstanding. To buy half a coin at 49.50, that's looking at a big pullback. That's a really big. That would actually break us down out of this wedge pattern. If you can see right now, we're forming a wedge pattern. There's a big channel here, but we're tight wedge pattern. There's a channel within a channel. This is all things that are familiar to us when we trade stocks. The patterns within the patterns, the wedge pattern. Breakout, this little flag. There's a good shot that this actually moves higher. I mean, technically, right at this level, it's a very bullish chart. Our falling wedge pattern typically break higher in a zone which is 65 to 75% into the pattern, which maybe is a little bit lower. But either way, I always want to take advantage of it. I don't want to. This is going to have to come to me. I think we had to get down to that 5,000, maybe under 5,000. This area right down here, I would be interested in, again, getting into a trade and trading it back up, possibly even up to 8,000, 9,000. I mean, it would be a great trade. I think there's a double in Bitcoin down the road. You know, as it gets closer and closer to zero, the double is going to be easy. But I don't know how far it's going to go down. I'm not a big pusher of Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. But I will trade the technical levels on it. So I will be getting into this bounce zone here. I'm looking forward to it. I'll let it play out. Let's take a look at the daily chart on this. And you can see this, how steep this was. But here's the bigger picture. Here, that 2 pivots on top is the big one, and then you have a nice downward line here. And this is pretty much kind of tight. I'm taking a mean or a kind of an average here of where this all comes down. It could be adjusted a little bit more, but that's where I'm going to run with it. And we're looking for this to move down here, a lower portion of area, and then maybe even flush through this just to get that overreaction. If this thing does have a little fast flash crash, I like it to see 5,000 being taken out, get down to that 4,000. I don't mind picking it up down here and holding it. I think we get down to 5,000, 4,000. We're making it back up to 7,000, 8,000. So I'm looking forward to that, and you can see the big picture, how this thing really took off November, December. This is where it really took off. I mean, this is just 5-6 months ago. So we came all the way back, and we're probably going to come back a little bit further. I mean, that's what I'm hoping, or else it's going to leave me behind. I'm not getting into it unless I get this level down here. So that's it on the update on the cryptocurrencies, and that's it. So I just want to throw out a fast little video, just kind of a market update. See how things are performing. Love to see a big rally tomorrow, but futures right now are currently lower. Let's see world. Let me go back to the SPX here. That's it. I don't want to waste your time anymore. I'll be broadcasting live tomorrow from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock every day, except Fridays when Paul's on doing the broadcast on Fridays, but I'm in the room. And Friday's usually a good trading day. So we'll see you in the markets tomorrow. And signing off. Have a good night.